a tough assignment, but it's to, yeah, tell us all your favorite song of all time. So you guys can think on that. And while we get started. Okay, here is our agenda for today. And the big topic of today is contract extension. Okay, so that's what we're going to spend the majority of the time talking about. And yeah, really thinking about our planning for the next 2 years. So to get us started with a little bit of housekeeping, I'm just going to keep this reminder here, the date that the next quarterly reports are due. So we've got a long time, January 31st, before the next one's due. You have not submitted your one from last quarter yet. I think there's just one of you. Please do that as soon as possible. Another reminder, we are shifting our meeting from instead of the 4th Wednesday of the month next month, we're shifting it to December 18th to accommodate all of the Christmas holidays. So thank you for accommodating this shift this month. And yeah, we'll get back on track in 2025. So yeah, as you all know, it's just kind of a crazy time here with Community Food Access Program. We're still in the thick of things with the grant, very much in the thick of things. We so appreciate all of you outreach and TA contractors who have supported our grantees with their submission of their required proof of payment, proof of purchase documentation. That's been super helpful. This is definitely taking up a lot of our time and is really important. We are also in the midst of figuring out this tax credit. This is the first time we've done it. We've had a great response. We're actually really impressed with all the submissions we've got. As you know, on October 31st, we had our second kind of close of applications. So it's been really wonderful to just see what's coming in and to know that we'll be able to issue some of these tax credits this year, despite the late start and all of us just kind of still wrapping our heads around what it means, right? So we're still very much in the thick of sorting out that tax credit. We are also launching the consortium, which we talked about last meeting. And there's a whole lot to do to make sure that those member benefits are utilized, to make sure that our consortium members are engaged, and to make sure this consortium is fulfilling the goals of the legislation. So, yeah, on top of all that, we need to make sure every penny of this federal allotment is obligated and documented the right way. So that brings us to your contract extension. We are, Perdita, go ahead.
I apologize, but I'm just going to ask really quickly. I have someone who's asking about notification for the October 31st. Do we have a time frame for that, for the tax credit?
Everybody was notified yesterday, actually.
Okay,
So,
sweet.
yeah.
Sweet. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. Okay, so contract extension. I know we've been queuing this up for months and months. The reason for the delay is, as I mentioned, we have to make sure that we are 1,000% certain that the amount we are extending your contracts by exactly matches the amount we have left over. We still are anticipating making one more grant award. So it's this moving target. But as I've mentioned in the past, the contract amount is around what the contract amount is per year per region. So that's something that you can be thinking about. And we hope to send you those contract it'll be sort of more of a cover page, I'm told, with just updated amounts. It won't be like the whole 45-page contract. I do want everyone to remember that, so the contract you have still applies. It'll just be sort of renewed with this cover page. I want everyone to remember that, everything that's in that 40-page contract still applies going forward once the new contract amounts are signed. But we do have flexibility. It says it's in your contract to adjust budget amounts or to adjust elements of the scope of work. We can do that fairly, easily. It's not a huge procurement process, but there does need to be agreement on both sides about the adjustments to the contract. So all of that means, if you're finding it challenging to predict what spending will look like, which subcontractors will be involved 2 years from now, know that we can make adjustments as we go. Okay. So now is a very great time as we are extending these contracts to kind of refocus, realign with the goals of this work. So I thought we would just kind of touch back in on the main goals here with this outreach work. So I'm going to start way back at the beginning of the origins of this program, right? This program was established through legislation. So our legislators identified a need in the state, which was that there are some Coloradans that have a very hard time getting to a grocery store. It's very challenging for many Coloradans to get groceries. That was the primary need that was identified for the establishment of this program. So, yeah, that's something we need to keep very central as we move forward with this outreach and technical assistance work. Everything should be about how is this work, ultimately resulting in and being easier for someone in a low income, low access area to buy groceries. I just want to state that a few times. The legislation also said the focus of this work is to expand that access to healthy food by supporting small food retailers. Okay. It also said that farmers can benefit as they are related to that supply chain, right? But the primary focus of this work is benefiting small food retailers. So that's evident in how the grant was described, how the consortium was described, and how the tax credit is set up, right? So is it easy to connect with these small food retailers? No, it's not. We all know this. You all have been working on this for a year. You've experienced this. Many of these retailers take a lot of visits and a lot of trust building and relationship building in order to establish a rapport and get these businesses to take advantage of our opportunities. Because this is so challenging, the state, as dictated by the legislation, is obligating, at the end of these contract extensions, it'll be $1.5 million towards your work, outreach and technical assistance. So the primary goal of bringing all of you into this work is to make those relationships with those small food retailers as the focus of this work, right? So primary goal of this program is to expand access to healthy food, make it easier for people, living in a rural area on SNAP to buy groceries. If those groceries are local, that's wonderful. that is a secondary goal, though, to what this program is doing. Jay, I'll leave time for comment. I just want to finish this though. So yes, it's there's both goals going on, but one is the primary, the other is secondary. So again, this mandate is coming from the law, right? Our legislators passed this bill, it's the law. Now, they put this program, which is focused on expanding access to healthy food by supporting small food retailers, in the Department of Agriculture. They could have put it in the Department of Public Health and Environment. They could have put it in the Department of Human Services. A lot of people are wondering why they didn't put it in those, areas. It's because there is this secondary goal to expand markets for Colorado producers. That still doesn't change the fact that the primary goal of this work is to support small food retailers, expand their opportunities to be viable businesses. With this tax credit, we hope that new grocery stores will pop up in areas that don't have them, right? So I just want to make that very clear. So as that relates to all of you and our contract extension going forward, we want to kind of take a step back. I know everybody's been doing a lot of landscape assessment of your region. We want to make sure that we are allocating our resources with this consortium, with this outreach and technical assistance work towards the highest priority areas. So to that end, you will see that for the next quarterly reporting, you have some totally different questions. They won't be asking you to reflect back on what outreach and technical assistance did you do this last quarter. They're going to be more focused on what is your strategic plan for the next 2 years. So think of this as sort of a miniature version of the proposal you didn't have to submit to get this money for the next 2 years. Tell us a bit about where are the priority areas in your region? How are you thinking about your the resources you have for this outreach and technical assistance to prioritize outreach and technical assistance in those priority areas? And how is this going to, ideally at the end of 2 years, what would you like to see different about your region and the opportunities people have to buy groceries? Yeah, that's kind of the gist of what I want to say. I also do want to say, if you are the lead contractor in this work, it's your responsibility that all of your subcontractors are understanding this focus, this goal, this priority. So yeah, efforts going forward should be very coordinated. They should be very data-driven. Where are the lowest income, lowest access areas of the region you're covering? And there's nothing to say that all of you have to provide equal amounts of support to every business that's technically eligible. We have learned in this past year, some of the best fit businesses that are going to make the biggest impact actually require a lot more TA. So, it's our job as stewards of these taxpayer dollars and public servants to make sure all of this money that we get to utilize to advance the goals of this program actually do advance these goals. Okay. Comments, questions? Jay.
Well, you touched on this, and I'm glad you did. And I'm just gonna, like our area, there are places that just completely lack retail stores. And so I'm really curious, what we can do about that. And we have been letting people know, like this coffee shop that's selling, food, like, hey, or, cafes kind of thing, like, hey, if you want to have a refrigerator of groceries, like start doing that. And then we can talk about how you can, maybe benefit from some of this funding. But I'm just wondering if there's some better strategy or some other thing that you guys have thought of about how to get people to be retailing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have a huge lack and like we keep losing grocery stores.
Yeah, exactly. Jay, I think that's such a good point. And that's the exact reason why when we started this work, CDA didn't say, okay, you all need to spend 80% of your time talking to stores and 20% of your time talking to, we're not gonna make those, you all know your regions better than we do. So, Jay, I think your strategies have been awesome. I think that, over the course, hopefully, this tax credit, once it gets utilized, it does serve as, yeah, a reason for a business to want to start up, especially in an area that really needs a grocery store. But that's going to take time. Um, and yeah, I think in your case, a retailer a retailer is a farm stand, right? And if that's truly the best way to support expanded access to buying healthy food, yeah, I think that seems like the best way to go about it. But, I think I'll be curious to read your replies to or your responses to the next quarterly um report. And yeah, I think we should just talk about it and brainstorm it. And maybe it's something that we all want to brainstorm together in one of these settings.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else is dealing with like there's just not stores in some towns, and how can we tackle that? I would love to hear what other people are thinking about around that particular issue. So, and yeah, when are the questions for that next quarterly report going to be out?
They are updated in your
Hmm.
quarterly report spreadsheets. So you can take a look at them now. Um, yeah, this quarterly report's not due until the end of January, but if you want to get this conversation started sooner rather than later, um, yeah, I'm all for it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Perdita.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about, I'm glad that you said, farm stands do function as retail spaces. Because I do think that I think there's interim time, right, where maybe, one is working on, like we in this area, there are a couple of stores that are sort of in the making,
Mhm.
potentially even for the east side. But in the meantime, you know, one of the best ways probably to continue to have access in the summer is through the farmers markets. And I was very curious if there can be like a really, really clear statement somewhere about what the definition of small retail business is, so that we can continue to do outreach to farmers who are doing farm stands. Or I don't know if that's my question, I guess. Are
Yeah.
we still doing, or are we just like, nope, it has to be brick and mortar?
No, so if you look on our website, you'll see the very clear definition of small food retailer.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, a small food retailer is technically a farm stand that is doing, yeah, doing business to, the one requirement is that they are SNAP authorized or intending to become SNAP authorized. But yeah, that's on our website. Um, I think what I'm getting at more with this line of questioning is, you know, agnostic to all the businesses we know, et cetera, any relationships we have, let's step back and look at the data of like, yeah, what are the highest need areas where are the lowest income Coloradans living in our region, who have, yeah, the most abysmal access to buying groceries. I think that's the exercise many of you have already been doing, but let's put it on paper so that we can reference it as we move forward through the next 2 years. And the beauty about the position we're in now compared to the position we were in when you all started is we get to do this, right? Instead of running around knowing that there's a grant with a very short time frame and a lot of money to get out the door and just sort of go, go, go. Who do you know? Who's eligible? Just let's try to make something happen with this, which is unfortunately how the grant rolled out just due to our tight timelines from the federal government. Now we are on a little bit of a different time frame. You all have been working in this space for some of you over a year, some of you close to a year. So let's take that step back and do that strategic planning, looking at the data, looking at who we've connected with already, and yeah, make a plan for how to allocate our time and our resources for the next 2 years. And Pradita, let me get you the definition, or let me pull up the place on the website where it shows what small food retailers are.
I guess one comment I would have, I guess this is where I feel like it gets murky, and maybe it's not murky at all, but it seems like the consortium is defining small retail businesses as brick and mortar. Whereas I'm sort of saying, like, for example, we have anchor farmers at the farmers market on the east side that are purchasing using, whatever it is, small volume buyer, farm food buyer licenses to purchase from other farmers. So they are functioning in that way as not just their own, as their own farm, but like purchasing from other farms, purchasing, right? In theory, they could purchase through a food hub. So I guess I'm asking those kinds of questions, like if, a farm stand is going to sort of function in that way, because there's a way in which this is a particular thing you and I could talk about it, but we could really use that to really strengthen what could happen on the east side at a farmer's market.
Yeah.
By being able to purchase through the hub, right? Or
Yeah.
through, but it's not been clear to me that farmers are going to be able to do that.
So yeah, let me make that very clear. So here's the tax credit and this definition of small food retailer comes from the legislation, the law, right? So yeah, this part describes a store. This part describes the farm stand or farm direct operation. So as to your point about the consortium, if they applied as a small food retailer, they are a retailer. If they have that appropriate, farm products dealer license and they can buy Colorado products, they can buy from the food hub, they can buy from other suppliers, and they are selling it. That definitely counts. So, I do want to acknowledge that, right, like what we're talking about in your area is an area that doesn't have grocery stores. Some are in the works of opening. They may or may not be considered eligible, right, when they do. So in the meantime, this is the best way to expand access through these farm stands or farm direct operations, right? But I think first we want to take a look at the whole landscape, and this isn't the case in every region, right? In some regions, there's more access with a small independent store that's open from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. every day of the week, all year round, that business is providing more access than a farmer's market or a farm stand, which is seasonal and maybe 1 or 2 days a week for a few hours, right? So I think we want you all to take a very active role in understanding, like, yeah, putting yourselves in the shoes of these community members and thinking about which businesses can we connect with that will actually make a real difference for people that live here who are living on a low income, maybe don't have a vehicle, maybe shop with SNAP, etc. So does that help, Perdita?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments, questions about this contract extension piece? Okay, great. I do also want to mention, we have this beautiful corner store outreach guide, which was developed by the Denver Metro Group. Just want to remind everyone that anyone being paid through this outreach and TA contract is required to read that guide. I know it's long. There might be certain pages that are not relevant at all to your region, but please, please, please take a look at that corner store outreach guide. We have it in English and Spanish. And yes, we acknowledge that these relationships are tough to form. There's a lot of reasons why, but we do have a 2-year period now where we can, if by December 2026, a corner store that you started building relations with is excited to apply to the tax credit, that would be a huge success and a good use of taxpayer dollars and all of the time spent. Okay. All right, I wanted to just totally switch gears. This might be kind of relevant, but I wanted to dive into the map layers of the most frequently utilized map to determine low income, low access status. Yeah, I think this is not something we've taken a ton of time to dive in with you guys together. But I think it's really helpful when you all as TA providers can understand how this map was built so that you can be really clear on helping businesses who are applying tell their story about how they fit into this definition of low income, low access. This could also be helpful for your efforts in, identifying priority areas. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So I think everybody's familiar with this map. This is, if you've helped anyone apply for the grant or the tax credit, you've seen this map. So yeah, what you know from the map is everything in purple is eligible. Everything in yellow likely isn't eligible, right? But that's not always the case. Someone can build a strong argument that their area that's in a yellow area is actually a low income, low access area. And that's fine. I just want to walk through this map and show you how these purple areas became purple and the yellow areas became yellow. So backing way up, this map is developed by an organization called America's Healthy Food Financing Initiative. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this organization. They fund very similar projects to the Community Food Access Program on a nationwide scale. So we are kind of piggybacking off of all the work they did because we don't have a we don't have someone with the skill set to build this beautiful map at CDA. It would be great if we did, but we are borrowing this from them. So all that to say, sometimes it's not perfect. But the way this map is built is by layering 3 data sets. So you can see all those separate map layers by clicking this new map button here in the corner. And then you can see a ton of other things, that you could measure, but the one you want to focus on is this eligibility map right here at the top. So if you drop down with this caret, you'll see supporting information listed here below. So here you can see the 3 data sources that are being utilized to build this map and which areas are purple. The first one is the USDA's low income, low access tracks. So you can just click on that and you'll see the map totally changes and a lot of the purple goes away. So this data source came from a USDA effort to identify low income, low access areas. They have a very specific definition of what that means based off of distance to a grocery store, and it's different for rural and urban areas. And yeah, poverty level, percent median income, as a percentage of the area median income. So everything that's purple is something that the USDA identified as low income, low access. So you can see those by looking at this map. Okay, skipping down to the last data layer, the limited supermarket area assessment. So this is a different assessment done by America's Healthy Food Financing Initiative. This looks at different factors to determine which areas are limited supermarket areas. So clicking on this layer, you'll see what they're calling a limited supermarket area. They also have kind of, they sort of have a range here of some other areas that are, they're considering in this assessment, but the dark purple ones are the limited supermarket areas. Okay, so you're wondering, how did this map plus this map add up to this map, where basically everything's purple? This eligibility map decided that if a census tract or a census block group was adjacent to a low income, low access area or a limited supermarket area, and its area median income was low, that it should be considered eligible too. Does that make sense? It's kind of appreciating the fact that, maybe you don't have, people travel basically, and expanding the number of areas that are considered eligible is more helpful than having a really limited scope. That said, it's really helpful for you all to know how to read this map and be able to support the businesses that you're supporting in telling their story. So I'm going to give you a very specific example why.
Nikki, before you go there, can you just repeat what you said again about the intersection of the 3 data sets and how it came up with the big one? You had one sentence that was strong, if you'll just say that again.
Yeah, what was that strong sentence? So basically this map, the eligibility map, takes low income, low access map from USDA, plus the limited supermarket area map, plus adjacent census tracts that also are low income, and adds it all together to this eligibility map where a lot is purple. Does that help? That what I said? Okay. You can also read up all about this on the Healthy Food Financing Initiative's website. They talk in depth about how they built this map. The reason why I'm getting so in depth, I would love to have a map for everyone in the state that is just black and white. You know, this is clearly low income, low access. This isn't. If you're here, you should apply. If you're here, you shouldn't. But we just don't really have that. In addition to that, we have in our legislation that set up our program, a business can make a case for their area meeting a local definition of low income, low access, right? So this was done in the grant and for the tax credit too. There, yeah, a good example here in up along the Peak Highway. Where is this? Yeah, this whole area. This county doesn't have a grocery store. There's only one nonprofit that's doing sort of grocery work in Gilpin County. However, where their store is located is in one of these yellow areas. So they built a very strong case as to why, why they're falling in this yellow area. They talked a lot about how there's a big difference between the millionaires that have their second homes up here and then, yeah, the lower income population that has to drive into Boulder to go to a WIC clinic. Their county doesn't have a WIC clinic. So they built a very strong case, and they were talking specifically about how they are targeting a low income, low access population, and they were awarded a grant. I want to just make sure on that. I want to tell you about a business here that didn't make a strong case. So, and this is why I'm telling all of you about the map layers. So this business is located right here. And so their case was, we're across the street from a low income, low access census tract. So enough said, we're right across the street. Well, this area that's purple isn't actually a low income, low access census tract or a low supermarket area. It's one of those census tracts that's adjacent to it. And I'll show you why. So the closest low income, low access census tract is way over here, right? So their claim that they're right across the street from a low income, low access area doesn't really hold any water. Okay, so again, I apologize, this isn't more simple, straightforward, but I encourage you to dig into this map. And when you're helping businesses, really be able to say, okay, the business we're talking about is located in one of these, low income, low access census tracts defined by USDA, or a limited supermarket area as defined by, HFFI, or is adjacent to one of those. But then, there's more of a sense of like which census block you want to be talking about, how you want to target your language and your application. Again, this map is a starting point. If your business that you're working with is in a yellow area, but you all live there, what it's really like, feel free to scrap the map, say we're not in one of your census blocks, but here's the real story here, right? And as much data and anecdotes that you can use to tell that story, the better. Okay? Yeah, Hunter.
Hi, thank you, Mickey. I just have a question related to that. So based on what you said, I totally understand why that business in that yellow area was not eligible. If they had been across the street in that purple area, would they have been eligible to apply even though they were like that kind of census tract distance away from one of the Lila communities?
Say your question again. If they had been across
So if they
our,
were across the street in that purple area in this map,
so in
does
this
that
map,
make them eligible to apply automatically? Like
this
just
map,
hypothetically.
in this map, they're across the street of from adjacent census tract, and it happens to be a really large one by coincidence. But yeah, so this map tries to factor in that sort of adjacent nature by including adjacent census tracts with low incomes. But yeah, I think in all of you exploring this map, you might find that some things just don't make a lot of sense based off of your knowledge of living there and your maybe some other data you find that is looking at poverty rates. Also, grocery stores can close, and something that was, had a supermarket at the time they did this study and isn't included in limited supermarket area or low income, low access, maybe that's just totally different now because a business has closed. So again, I'm sorry this isn't more cut and dry, but it is absolutely imperative because this is the crux of the work. How is this expanding access where there currently or previously wasn't any, if that makes sense?
I'm still a little I don't know. The reason I'm trying to nail down on this is because on the FAQ page it says if they're in a purple area on this map, they're
Yeah.
eligible. And so is that still like universally true, or if they're in one of these areas that's purple but not necessarily near one of the USDA identified Lila communities,
Yeah,
should we
right.
still be making that case on top of it, or is it enough to say it's in this community, it serves a Lila community because of being purple on this map?
So the reason why we say it in big broad strokes is we, yeah, we want people to quickly know if it's not worth their time to apply, right? Like if you're in Aspen, it maybe just don't take the time with the application. But yes, if they are in one of these purple areas based off of this map, they can apply. Again, anybody can apply. It's not, even if you're in yellow areas, you can apply. I think to your point, how do you answer that question? I think we would love you all to help businesses know if they are in one of these areas. If you're in one of these areas, enough said, I'm here. Or if they're in one of these areas, which is adjacent to it, technically, yeah, they've got a case, but let's hear a little bit more. Let's just like help those businesses tell their story a little bit more than the ones that are clearly identified as low income, low access.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. I'll say it again. I wish this was more straightforward. But what it would take to make it more straightforward would be like constant data collection, somebody with a skill set to build a cool map like this. Penelope.
Just question off of something that you just said, and so as far as grant narrative goes, and you're helping someone with TA, and they're in the USDA layer purple,
Mhm.
can we save their time and hours and limit the narrative on why? And just say, yep, we are in that USDA purple. Here's a couple sentences on how we see that and move on. Again, thinking more like
Yeah, saving time.
ease of that. And if we don't need to make a big case, then let's not spend our time on that. And I hear what you said about the adjacent. There needs to be a little bit more narrative as to why.
Mhm.
What's your
Yeah,
response to that?
yeah. I would say if you're looking and seeing that they're in a limited supermarket area or um, a USDA low income, low access, saying that we are in a USDA low income, low access census tract according to this map. Yeah, you don't need to say much more. We do have a separate question that's like, tell us about the other grocery stores in your area. That can be very simple. That can be, there's another grocery store 20 miles away. There's a farmer's market open on Saturdays from June to October. It can be just that. It doesn't need to be, we don't need paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs. So yeah, thanks for that. Any other comments or questions about this map and all the layers? All right. Okay. So yeah, we can spend the rest of the meeting talking about where we're at with the consortium and tax credit. I already mentioned, we're in the launching phase of the consortium. Everybody who is a current consortium member received an email, a second email, describing their member benefits and an invitation to the first meeting. So this first meeting is December 5th. We would love all of you to be there. However, I do want to just express my fears about this consortium. I fear that this consortium, which is expressly legislatively designed for small food retailers and the farms that are working with them, becomes a space that's maybe dominated by a lot of voices that aren't those businesses, right? We really want to do everything we can to help retailers and the farmers that are supporting them be engaged in this group, feel like it's a place for them to truly access resources, access financial opportunities to support their business. And we want to leave some room for this consortium to go in the direction that they want it to go, right? And as we've already talked about, these are busy business owners. Maybe they don't regularly sit in Zoom meetings like I assume we all do. So if you want to come and hear about, just kind of see what it's like, we'd love to have you there. I do just request that, you kind of leave the floor open for, the members to talk. Yes, Penelope.
It may be more complicated than it's worth, but I'm wondering with these kind of like standard emails that are going out, if there's ways that we could be OTAs could be included in those. So we
Mhm.
see like, here's the language they're using, here's how they're listing those benefits, here's the December 5th meeting and the time, just so
Mhm.
that that would be supportive.
Yeah, yes. I'll send those emails to you all.
I want
Yeah.
to tag on to that like the stuff that you're sending to people about the tax credit too. It's like we don't really know when, when you can meet somebody Like I feel really out of the loop sometimes with like, yeah, just y'all's communication with these folks. I want to, I want to be able to follow up with them and know what we're talking about, but there's sort of this gap between what y'all send to them versus what we know.
Right. So there's a couple things with that. Like, so yes, with general communications, absolutely. We can put outreach and TA folks on that list, or I'll send you all the email that was sent to, yeah, to businesses. I am struggling though, Jay, with the process of, like, for example, yesterday, email communication was sent to every business who applied for the tax credit in October. I happen to remember, because Ava did such a great job of reaching out to me on behalf of this business, I forwarded what was sent to Ava. However, this is tough. One, because what we mentioned before, like, businesses consent in this process. Two, yeah, just kind of like knowing who, right. Should I just send, I think maybe it might make sense to send a batch email with like updates on the status of everything going on with applicants in your region. It's just like, that's a pretty bulky task for us right now. So I'm open to ideas. Ava, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just while we're on the conversation of Simple Foods, because I believe that that's the business that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Did you guys come to a conclusion on that? Because if you did email me about that, I don't think that I got anything. I had the owner of the business reach out to me 3-4 days ago and ask if I'd heard anything about how his application is looking, just because it was such a complicated case. So I don't know if you have any updates on that. That was something I wanted to ask.
Yeah, so like I just said, I forwarded the exact email that was sent to the business to
Okay.
you 17 hours ago. So,
Okay.
yeah, that, I think that's, Jay, what you're asking, like, could that happen across the board?
Or I'm like, can you just CC me on the, CC one of us on the emails that you're sending to the folks in our region,
I know that's the vision I had in mind for this. It just, I think we have to keep thinking on this. So maybe what we do is, in the application, have a question that's like, I consent to have the outreach and TA, support person copied on communications. I think that could be a way forward. Then we get their consent. We also have them tell us exactly who they want copied. But then, yeah, I think it's also smart to think about a way to just kind of give you guys a summary on a periodic basis of like what's been going on in your region on our end that you may not know about. And yeah, I'm open to ideas there.
I was gonna ask real quick because I did just go check my email. I don't see the email that you sent to Simple Foods. Do you have the email that you sent it to? Because I'm
Yeah,
curious if it's my old one.
Oh, your email address.
Yeah, yeah.
But we'll talk about this offline.
Okay.
And get it
Okay,
sorted.
sounds good.
But yeah, this is a perfect example of like, okay, yeah, that's sort of just a sloppy process that didn't even work. So how can we make this better? So adding consent question to applications, all applications. Cool. Do folks like that idea? Okay. All right.
Is it being too tricky? And I'm not trying to be tricky, just trying to be easeful, like to have them have to opt out instead of opt in?
We have to ask our compliance people about that. Yeah,
It's all
there's a,
good. Just throwing that
yeah,
out there as like a different way of approaching it that at times for folks that aren't detail oriented and reading it all, I don't know. And again,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be tricky, just effective.
yeah. And then I need to ask, so right, like with this clarification email, there's no really sensitive information in there, but for the certificate, like when we send, this is a great update. We were able to send our certificates out for the first round of applicants finally, which is huge. So really exciting to know that there are actually businesses that are actually officially going to get this tax credit. But is it allowed for you all to be copied? And yeah, if because there is sensitive business tax information on there, is that okay? And you guys all did get your insurance, so yeah, I've just the in questions along these lines, yeah, when I request this up the chain, people have been pretty sheepish about it. So, but yeah, I agree. There has to be a smoother way to keep you all in the loop of what's going on with each business. Any other comments, questions along those lines? Okay. Perdita.
Just to confirm again, I think this is along those lines. So it sounds like the decisions were made for October 31st and the notifications have been sent out. So I was wondering if we could maybe institute something where once those notifications have been sent out to the recipients, that you could let us TAs just know who was awarded without any of the other information. Is that possible?
I think so. What I will say though, Perdita, is a lot of folks need, it hasn't been decided. There were a lot of incomplete applications, so
Okay.
we're requesting
Okay.
that. But again, that's like a great time for OTA to be looped in and know, oh, okay, this business has something to do before they get their tax credit certificate. So yeah, I think maybe, right, adding that consent question to the application and then adding just another process item of, yeah, after that has happened, send a brief summary of the businesses that, right, yeah, are needing support or received a credit to outreach and TA. Yeah, I wish we had a larger admin team to do all of this. It's definitely pretty time intensive to yeah. And with the different layers of privacy, it makes it a little challenging too. Okay, so back to the consortium. Um, yes, so with the email that was sent to all consortium members is a reminder for the meeting and to register for the meeting. A high-level summary of the member benefits, and then a survey. And this survey is a landscape assessment so that we at CDA can start to collect data on what the biggest problems are in terms of distribution. and generally other things so that we can start to think about, other resources to pull in, and other ways we want to utilize the consortium. So we'll probably have that survey just open at all times, with new members being invited to take it when they join the consortium. Okay, one other thing that was on my list of things to talk about, but they kind of beat me to it this morning by sending a copy of a flyer just about the consortium, which is beautiful. Knowing that we've got an equipment tax credit to promote, consortium opportunities to promote, what kind of marketing materials are helpful to you? Do you want to just have like one flyer that says it all, or separate flyers? I'm also fully on board. Sorry, it didn't get sent out to everyone today. It just was sent to me by Jay, which, is exactly what I was about to say. Anybody that wants to sort of develop materials that are sort of custom for your needs, for the relationships you already have. I'm thinking about the difference between, in the Denver metro area, there are a lot of small food retailers. There are just tons of small food retailers in the Denver metro area, some who have never been approached by our outreach and TA providers. With, like J Express in the San Luis Valley, they've kind of achieved saturation of everybody who's eligible. So, right, a flyer for someone learning about this for the first time might need to be a little bit different than, a flyer from someone you've already maybe taken advantage of grant opportunities. So what are thoughts on this marketing request? Again, I always welcome, if you want to make your own material. A lot of you are way better with Canva and design tools and faster than we are. So if you want to make your own materials and show them to me, I can give a thumbs up pretty quickly. Yeah, Jay.
I mean, I just because the consortium's starting soon, I'm like really anxious to talk about it. And I just looked in y'all's resource folder and there wasn't anything there. There wasn't a flyer, anything. There was no way. And like basically part of our new marketing department within the local foods coalition like requires me to like fill out a form. And if I don't have a graphic to go with information, it's going to be really weird. And so this is where I kind of need a graphic to like plop in with information like this, like just text in our newsletter or on our social media isn't going to work. And that's where I bumped into the need for a flyer specifically for the consortium. Because, and to me, I kind of want them separate to not overwhelm people with like, what is this? You got to do both of them together. And I like to keep things as simple as possible, right? Like, and I pulled most of the language right off your website, but I had to shorten it. So it's like, go to the website to read the details. But I'm really interested in people. I want to see people taking advantage of the benefits of the consortium, right? I really want to do that. And we've already bugged a lot of people about the tax credits. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for sharing your kind of marketing process at the Local Foods Coalition. That's helpful to know. Michelle, go ahead.
Two quick questions for all the TA folks. Would a template, an email template, be helpful that had like the logo and just kind of a framework, and then you can add content? And then second question, is email the best way to communicate with folks in your region, and or would a printed piece, again, maybe a template that you could customize, like what are the best ways we can help support that communication, knowing it's going to be across the state?
I think a printed template with some sort of customizable elements would be great. Sort of like Jay said, some at least logo from CDA to convey that authority, but even a graphic, whatever graphic you're going to use for communications about the consortium in the future. It'd just be nice to have that consistent branding.
And actually, as I thought about it last night, like the consortium doesn't have anything to do with the TA providers, really. I mean, we can get the word out, but I was like, this really could just be, you know, you made the thing for the grant, you made a very similar flyer for the tax credit that all looks like branded like CDA. Like where's the one for the consortium that I
Yeah.
don't even need to put my info on? I could just blast it out, and hopefully y'all put a QR code and the URL spelled out on there for people. As well as what I'd also like to see is a interactive PDF. So if I email a PDF to somebody, they can click those links.
Right. So yeah, it's truly just been an issue of having enough time to make this. So yes, the other piece is, you know, I think what we were really asking from TA providers is to, instead of like promoting this to new businesses, going to businesses who received the grant, who are members of the consortium, and just sort of touching in and saying, hey, did you get that email about the consortium? I can tell you a little more about it. Here's reasons why you should be engaged. We're actually not really at a point where we need like mass outreach about it. But I do think that a flyer, as you go into someone who is already a member of the consortium, is a good thing to have. So it's kind of just a matter of like making the time to make that. So Jay, I really like the one you created. It's really simple and straightforward. It touches on everything they got in the email. So it's just kind of like a redundant, another touch point saying, this is what you can get. I'm happy to talk through if anyone has more questions about some of those food hub benefit opportunities or the consortium tax credit, which we spent time talking about last month. I know is complex. Please reach out to me if you want a little clarification on what the opportunities in the consortium are, before you go talking to anyone who's a member. Okay. All right. Last thing I will say is, yeah, just refresh yourselves with the outreach and technical assistance priorities right now. This is on the agenda. Share my screen. So yeah, I think this is helpful. I will keep this updated every month. This hasn't changed much from that last month, but yeah, first priority, actively reaching out to and supporting grantees, helping them with their documentation to submit, as well as just giving them a little nudge. Hey, did you get that email about the consortium? Can I help explain more what it is? Are you planning to attend the meeting on the 5th? Sort of equal, but second priority, and I know a lot of you have been really active in doing this, encouraging businesses who have already bought costly equipment this year to fill out a tax credit application. Yeah, we talked about that last month. And then, right, continue your learning with these new opportunities. I'll say it again, these are new opportunities. We at the department are still figuring them out. We don't expect you all to be mass marketing them and be experts in them. So start to learn about, yeah, continue your learning about the equipment tax credit and continue your learning about the consortium offerings based off of what we've told you. Ask us questions, give us feedback. We do want this. we are in the building stage here. And then always, you know, connecting with your group, having a coordinated, strategic, data-driven effort to reach the highest priority areas, building that trust and relationship with these good fit businesses. And yeah, digging in a bit more and responding to those narrative questions on your quarterly report regarding, yeah, the landscape of food access in your region. Is there anybody who, so I've updated those questions in your quarterly report. If you're going into what you think is your quarterly report and you don't see them there, they're the same as they've always been. It might be that we're updating different documents, so just please let me know, and we'll get aligned there. So Jay, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a little off topic, but it was something I wanted to ask. And I feel like I've asked it before, but I don't remember if repairing equipment that would be eligible to purchase, just like, hey, we've got a refrigerator, but it needs a new compressor. Is that kind of a thing eligible?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, cool.
A compressor would definitely be considered costly equipment. I think if you're going down this road and yeah, I think feel free to reach out if you're like, this, I don't know that this could pass as equipment. A compressor is a very, yeah, is a piece of costly equipment, even though it's part of another piece of equipment. I think, yeah, like maintenance, installation.
Yeah, well, and I
It's,
guess like if it's not a compressor, but it's some other type of like we just had to hire a service person to come out here and we're paying this guy to fix something. I just don't, I'm curious.
I know, I am too. I really wish that the tax credit language had been written with just like a little bit more for us to go off of. So let's navigate this together. And yeah, we'll take this up the chain when we have to. Um, the best I can do right now, Jay, is say if it's a thing, if it's a big, expensive thing, yes. If it's like a service, no. Adonai, Michelle, do you want to, is there any other clearer way to think about that? It's so tough.
I think you got it. Like if you're contracting with someone to provide a service that is not equipment, like we really need to think about the definition of, right, the lasting, enduring use of that piece of equipment where a service comes in, they're fixing something and then they leave. I wish it could be that, but the way the legislation is written, it just doesn't fit.
If there, you know, and we've seen a lot of invoices from contractors at this point. If the invoice separates out the part, and the part is, I mean, I know when I get my car repaired, you know, there's a separate fee for the part versus the labor. There could be something there. So again, though, I know a lot of contractors just have these empty invoices that says nothing except the date and how much is owed. So yeah, I hope that helps. It's not super black and white though. Aiva.
Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of piggyback off what Jay said. We've talked to a lot of people that have pretty individual and different concerns than I think what we've addressed in these meetings. So another question that we got was if someone hypothetically wanted to start selling grocery items or like those 3 staple foods out of a greenhouse, they were talking about if they use the greenhouse to produce food, for example, over the summer hours, and it is increasing access to a low-income, low-access area during part of the year, but then is used for other things in another part of the year, would that be considered eligible?
The
That makes
greenhouse?
sense.
The greenhouse is
Yeah.
the equipment in question.
Yeah.
It's sounding like it's eligible if it's producing groceries and food, but we can keep talking about that one. If you have other
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, because I think it's just the time of the year. They like half of the year they'd want to be using it to, increase access to food, lengthen the amount of time that food could be available. But then in the winter months, for example, maybe if they use it for something else to store other things, if that, using it for different purposes at different times of the year would affect if it's eligible.
It's so
And
tough.
they were also wanting to like retail food out of this greenhouse. Like they've got a corner lot with no infrastructure and wanting to build this and I'm like, I think that is like, if you can be kind of, and I don't know if that would be like, is that a brick and mortar retail space or is it a farm stand? We'd have to really get clear on what they were thinking. But yeah, it was a greenhouse to retail food out of also.
It sounds like it, just circling back to what you were talking about, the main issue being like there's just not that many stores, and this sounds like it's expanding retail access. So yeah, I mean, the percentage of use for the goal is a really tough one, right? And you can see how this is such a slippery slope with
Would that be something if they filled out an eligibility form, it could be looked at a little bit closer?
Yeah, I think that's a
Okay.
great example. Like if they want to fill out the form, and then we can give feedback.
Yeah, because I do think they were going to go ahead and wait until 2025 to potentially order or to buy this greenhouse for that. So if we reach out to them, I'll just let them know to submit that eligibility form.
Okay.
Yeah, but we got a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right. And the hope is that this program can be adaptive to a wide variety of solutions to this challenge of being able to buy healthy food. So we want to try to keep this as open as possible without kind of scope creep or blatant misuse of the tax credit, right? So yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Any other questions? Monique, I saw you had a hand up.
Yeah, so just to be clear, if the cost of the equipment includes installation and it's not broken out, then they should submit for whatever the invoice says the cost of the equipment is, or now we need to go to them and say, get an invoice that has the cost of the equipment and the installation broken out if we know that it's a giant piece of equipment that needs installation.
Yeah, unfortunately, the law says it can only be used for equipment. So yeah, we will want to see that invoice for the equipment. We may not know though that installation was included if so maybe we want to talk offline about this one, but yes, ideal. So they don't need to go through and really, they'll just need to send us the invoice, right? And our accounting department will identify this is equipment, this is installation, one isn't. The tax credit will be calculated for the amount that's eligible.
Right. Okay. And in the last example that was just shared about the greenhouse, I know Mickey, you and I had a conversation around this, but a greenhouse that's willing to retail healthy food in this last instance, you just said would be eligible.
Yeah, because it's food, right? It's like groceries.
Okay. Got it.
Cool. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Well, keep the questions coming. Yeah, keep sending people to that eligibility request form. If you feel like you want to just have a conversation about it before you send people to the form, though, we're all ears. And yeah, really looking forward to reading your quarterly reports next quarter. Yeah. Anything else anyone wants to express?
Mickey, if no one else has any questions, do you mind if I stay on and just chat with you one-on-one for a few
Yes.
minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Michelle.
I just, I've been doing this, trying to do this more consistently and consciously, just have gratitude for all of you, right? Thinking about the Thanksgiving holiday coming up, and CDA could not do this work without all of you. So thank you for continuing your efforts. I am newer at working for the state, but I'm really so appreciative and grateful for all that you do. So thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. All right. I am going to stop recording. Let you guys go.